I have gone on a long time. I apologize, but I must give you the epilogue to this story. In recounting the history and prehistory of medical practice, a pattern has fallen into place that was unintended at this work's inception, namely an insight into the social circumstances surrounding the evolution of medical practice. Medical progress, used here as a surrogate for both pragmatic and intellectual progress, has always been prepared to emerge from the shadow of existential threats that can be acute, poignant, and demanding. The window of opportunity for that emergence, however, appears to be small and vulnerable. Had it been otherwise, much advanced knowledge of a modern nature might have been available in what we now call prehistory. Indeed, the prehistoric human experience might have been significantly shorter had the escape from egalitarianism by our ancient forebears occurred sooner. Based on data from the Population Reference Bureau, it can be estimated that 100 billion humans died, most at a young age, and with no effective medicines or analgesia in terrible misery between 50,000 BC and the 18th century AD, at which time the natural state of medical practice was reinstituted in the West, and modern medicine and its scientific ramifications proceeded to mollify or prevent many of the miseries of humankind, dramatically improving what is bureaucratically termed QALY, or Quality Adjusted Life Year, and doing so on a global scale. It is a fair deduction, given the evidence in the natural state of medical practice, that a large proportion of those dying before the age of modern medicine would have had access to improved medical care had the escape from egalitarianism been permanently successful thousands of years ago. Nevertheless, with the remarkable progress that has been made in the past 3 centuries, perhaps mankind has finally and permanently ridded itself of a self-imposed serfdom that has led to the intellectual entrapment of the mass of humanity and has shuffled all past civilizations to their demise. But in doing so, it has left historians with only the history of authoritarian machinations and the monuments recording the tragedies of human folly, rather than the story of the common man and woman from which to untangle the story of mankind. Thus, the question to be posed is not what happened in our past. It is instead, what did not happen? Although what did not happen will never be known, why matters happened as they did is now known. The root problem, having hereto been overlooked, as the forest is overlooked for the trees, is demonstrated in the present work. Authoritarianism in its many nefarious forms, one being social egalitarianism. It is proposed that recent efforts of the West, successful so far, and in retrospect the few and temporary successes in ancient times, can be attributed solely to liberty, but not just of liberty of the individual. More importantly, for human progress, it is the liberty of the autonomous group with focused self-interest. The reason is disarmingly simple. 2 heads are better than 1. In other words, the koinon, or common counsel. Now, the desire for and appreciation of liberty is inherent in every human heart, a component of the individual conscience traceable to natural law. That subtle human attribute that is neither genetic nor learned, but has been available to all mankind since the first man and woman. Always in the past have authoritarian policies or doctrines pushed the good genie of our conscience back into the bottle. As the authoritarian conscience ascended and asserted its own definition of right and wrong. In our age, however, a marvelous expansion of both progress and an appreciation of liberty in promoting the welfare of all mankind can be attributed to consequences of the Reformation. Indeed, it may be stated that the natural state of medical practice, as defined and historically interpreted herein, has contributed to unprecedented healthful longevity because of beneficent consequences from Western society's adherence to natural law. Let us then reconsider our attribution of the origin of today's manifold successes to great empires, great men, great cities, ethnic forebears, and to central planning. It is nothing like that. They are but the headline-catching flotsam on the far more interesting sea of humanity. Rejoice in the accomplishments of genius, but forget not that genius has abounded in every age and in every people as a well-kept secret, and that every person in the appropriate place and at the appropriate time can be considered a genius at something. Indeed, the unique genius of Homo sapiens lies in its variations that are expressed best in the ability of that species to recognize the benefits of peaceful group deliberation by free individuals for their varied ideas with a goal of self-interest, focusing on the problem at hand. Unfortunately, it has been rule of the jungle or the mob to take from or to control others that has consistently delayed the establishment or speeded the demise of that principle of genius. And that is too bad, because variety within our species should be associated with wonder and delight, as well as survival advantage, rather than envy or fear. And I remember the elderly lady who sometimes boarded the bus I took to and from work in Manhattan. As she started slowly down the aisle, she would say, "Good morning, children," to which many in the bus responded, "Good morning." She sometimes then said a homily, one being, "For God planned that, like flowers, his children should be of different colors and varieties, that they were all beautiful, and should love one another." Briefly put, the broad-based success we enjoy in the West today, especially in healthful longevity, has been acquired in little more than 2 or 3 centuries. The roadmap for that success has been now identified. In history and prehistory, the course of the natural state of medical practice coincides with the course of liberty of the individual. That liberty allows expression of innate genius of our species as magnified through various human agencies. But success is sporadic, and human history suggests it is not permanent. For the unceasing authoritarian quest for control over and uniformity of every human behavior using all necessary means of coercion remains today an increasingly threatening presence at home and globally. As we look about us today and witness the massive influx of foreign populations into Western democracies, an influx variously attributed to seeking asylum, fleeing poverty, and evading humanitarian disasters, the principal difference today we are seeing I have to make this statement again. As we look about us today and witness the massive influx of foreign populations into Western democracies, an influx variously attributed to seeking asylum, fleeing poverty, and evading humanitarian disasters, what we are seeing is nothing more than an escape from egalitarianism and its consequences. The principal difference being today in both the magnitude of the problem and the frantic efforts being made by Italians immigrant who now knows, by virtue of modern communication, that he or she need not chance survival alone in the jungle or the savannah when they leave their kinship or comradeship, but in that country just just across the border, there's a better life, liberty, and the possibility of happiness. More than just medical practice is in the balance. Thank you.